afternoon, everyone. So, we are going to look at a very interesting topic that I think all of us are kind of struggling with and trying to understand how to go about dealing with this in this current AI space. So, finance itself is one such domain where AI has been adopted a little bit later than in comparison with the other domains. So that's why we're going to be talking about the latter part of how to work with the trustworthiness part of it. Because today, as we all know that it's the era of agentic AI, RAG implementations, LLMs, and all these buzzwords that are surrounding our world today. So we'll see how we can make these systems more robust and better, because that is exactly what we want to do ahead and ensure that our production grade systems are very reliable. So here I'm going to be talking about building trustworthy AI in finance. That is the goal in the talk today, and also what we really want to build in the times to come. So that's a little bit about me before we start and understand what we really want to go ahead with. So I am an associate data scientist working currently with one of the leading fintechs, which is nothing but Morgan Stanley Capital International. Here we build financial products which are going to be helping equity research firms across the world to invest in different financial instruments and also help to get major profits out of them. So that's the basic goal, and we create indexes for this purpose. And we build a lot of financial products surrounding the ecosystem to be able to help us with the entire process. I have worked with various other firms like Quantify, Viacom 18, General Mills, as well as BNP Paribas, which is one of Europe's leading investment bank. I have more than 8 years of experience now working in the space of ML as well as AI. I like teaching, so I am a visiting faculty at multiple institutes in India, especially when we talk about some management institutes. So NMIMS Mumbai being my base, and then moving to Masters Uni in IIM Udaipur recently, and many such other tech institutes like BITS Pilani. I like mentoring, so I am present online on various platforms like Preplace as well as TopMate to be able to help a lot of career professionals guide themselves self into their AI domain and gain their success over there. So that's a little bit about me. Now let's get to the agenda, what we really intend to cover. So with respect to finance, one major thing that doesn't really work well is a black box model, because whenever we come to solution building, if we are not able to explain our solutions or not able to explain why this particular solution should be adopted, it is not something that people really would want to adopt. So that's why what we'll try to talk about first is the problem, why black box in AI is a major barrier, especially in the financial space. Next, what we'll talk about is the solution, which is something that we are aware of in a lot of ways, that is interpretable AI and explainable AI, which we are implementing in certain ways, but still lacking in some aspect or the other. So that is something which we'll talk about. And then we'll talk about how generative AI is really aiding us in making this entire interpretability game better. Then we talk about certain use cases where we are able to see how we can accommodate this trustworthiness, the responsible part of AI in our solutions. I'll talk about one such solution where we've also tried to integrate some kind of trustworthiness there and how that really works. Then we'll talk about a framework which can be built with respect to catering to responsible AI, which is something which is very important today. So we'll end with that so that then we take up questions. So let's talk about this particular screen which all of us use. I think a lot of us must have used it today here also in this particular hall. That is asking about certain terms which you might have heard about during the talks, or trying to know about certain things which you may not be aware of. So this is a ChatGPT screen. Everybody's used this. But to be honest, do you think that ChatGPT is truly trustworthy? I mean, can you bank on it and say that, okay, this is something which is a fact which is given by it and I can rely on it? In certain extent, yes, to a certain extent, but there are some facts which are misrepresented, or they talk about it in a very different way where the facts are misrepresented in ways where it is hallucinated, like numbers are highly represented or facts which are made up by it on its own when you're conversing with it. So this often happens. So this is a problem which we face with LLMs, and at the stage where we are, like 2 years, 2.5 years after generative AI tools have really come into our ecosystem. And we see this as a problem yet. So what are the solutions to this, or how do we work around this? We can't totally bank on what they are saying as true facts. We need to reevaluate, think whether what they are saying as tools is correct or not. So that's exactly what we need to look at. So now we'll talk about the problem. What is the problem that the financial industry is actually facing? The black box nature of models. So till now, what we know about is that we were using models like machine learning models, deep learning models, as well as now we are going towards language models, like large language models. There has been a shift from ML to DL to LLMs. The problem that has really occurred in this case is that neural networks are the ones which are the most reliable ones because they have done really good pattern recognition, which really helps the financial use cases. But the problem associated with neural networks is that we can't attribute what the features are trying to tell you, or we cannot really interpret them in the right way. That is one of the struggles that we face. So they are incredibly powerful, we know about that, but then again, they are not explainable in the ways that we would want it to be. That is the major issue. That is black box. Everybody has asked me this question even outside, that how is it black box? Can you actually decipher it? What is it that really happens at the back end? Because all that people see is an input that is going into the system and an output that is really coming in from the right hand side. So that is usually the flow that we really see. But what is really happening at the back end? We are not aware of it. Or what is it that is really contributing to give us that output? That is something which is lacking. So that is exactly what is the problem. And why is this especially unacceptable in finance? Because here what we are dealing with is not just numbers, but they are money parameters in a lot of ways. So we have currency, we have other values at stake, which are not something which, if misrepresented, can be worked with. So first of all, in terms of regulation, it is not something which you can discriminate very easily. That is, if there is some values which are given to you by the LLM, say you throw in a prompt and ChatGPT is giving you some answer, and it's not according to the regulations that are set by the Indian government or even a government abroad, that is not something which will work with the financial world, because you have to be under your regulations. Second, risk management. So if you don't understand why a particular model is failing, you can't just attribute it or say to it that the model is failing. You need to know what the reason is. We need to be able to explain that properly. So that's another problem. And in terms of customer trust also, like if the computer is saying no, or if you are getting an error in your API calls, like I saw a lot of sales pitches outside where you're showing demos of products. When you're showing that, many a times there are things which are lagging, or you're not getting the output in the desired time. So you're looking for an output in 30 seconds or 1 minute. You will not want to make your customers wait to be able to get that output. So the customers are not going to be able to accept that kind of a situation. Next, I think performance accuracy is only not something that we are looking at. In a lot of business calls, the number that is quoted is like highly in terms of accuracy. 80% accuracy, 90% accuracy, 95%. These are numbers which we often hear. But that is not something which is completely justifiable until and unless you build that trust. And that trust is something that you can build only through transparency that we achieve in this particular case. So what is the solution? We know what the problem is now. What is the exact solution to this entire case? The base level solution that we have, or which is existing since a certain years, is to be able to build both interpretability as well as explainability. Interpretability itself means that we are able to explain what features are really contributing, or what is really helping us understand the working of the models that we are building. Whereas explainability means that you are trying to take a simulation of that model in a much more simpler category, and you are trying to show the performance of it with respect to your larger sample case. So that is the difference between the two. So now, earlier, what were the techniques that we had which we were using? One is, all the developers here would have heard about Shapley values as well as Lime values, which we are using to understand what is the contribution of each feature in the prediction of the model and the values associated with it. As well as Lime is also a complex model which is locally interpretable. So this is something which is being used. Now, if you get more in addition to this, it makes your entire output, your predictions, much more understandable, much more relatable. So that's what we are trying to get at, which is something like this, like say a counterfactual explanation. Say you went to a bank and your loan didn't get approved. Okay, so you would want a certain feedback associated with it as to why it didn't get approved. You'd want perfect reasons for it so that you don't face something like this again. I'm pretty sure that none of us want to go through that process again and face the similar problems. So say if you get such an answer from your loan disbursal system, which says that your loan would have been approved if your income was $5,000 higher. Now that is a very straight indication of the reason why it was not approved. So if you get more information in comparison to what you just had till now, would just be an add-on, and you would not make the same kind of mistakes again, and you would be able to make your processes more robust in nature. So that is exactly what we are trying to look at, that is to make our processes robust and more trustworthy with respect to AI. So now how is Gen AI helping? So till now what we saw was basic standard ML techniques or deep learning techniques which are really helping us do that. Now how is generative AI really transforming this entire interpretability game? One is natural language explanation. So it gives you clear, understandable reasons as to why a particular process has failed for you as a customer, or why a particular service has not worked for you, or it's throwing you an error. So that is one understanding that you get, which is natural language explanation. Second is interactive QA. So with every website today that you are working with, say for example, you're working to trying to buy something on Amazon. Say for example, you want to buy a product. Now you are facing some struggle while trying to, pick out the products, pick out the right kind of variation that it has, like a color or a dimension, shape and size associated with it. You're facing that issue and you want that immediately. We have this chatbot at the side, right? Nowadays, every website has that, where you can really communicate with the chatbot and get information from it, and it's able to help you in a better way, that it gives you descriptive information about how to go about and buy that product in a better way, or they would help you to do that. So that is nothing but interactive QA. So this QA system that has been developed is something which can be integrated even in finance to help us with our processes being much more better. That is second. Third is automated report generation. We do send out a lot of reports as a part of our daily framework for reporting purposes, which could be numbers, which could be different aggregations of reports that you come across, or even processes or products that you are working with. If all of this process, which is used to generate the reports, is automated, that can really make your processes much more better. That is, your compliance reports which are there, if they are not just presented in the technical language, but made to be usable for the users in a much more simpler English language, that makes it much more easier for everyone to read and understand. So that is nothing but interpretability at the back end, because when you are trying to automate those compliance reports, you are creating some processes at the back end, you are using some model to give you some outputs and so on. Then what if scenario simulation? That is something which a lot of us see on a daily basis, that data changes which are there and we create a what if simulation around it, that okay, if this is the scenario, this is what we will do. Such a kind of a scenario also, Gen AI really helps you much, much better there. Now, in terms of use cases, let's talk about certain use cases in the financial space. I'll talk about these four use cases specifically, and then I'll talk about one use case which we ourselves face and how did we really build a trustworthiness system over there. So, prioritized money laundering cases. So, you know that there are money laundering situations. So, for that, we build anti-money laundering softwares which are able to detect that kind of a system, right? Now, if it just told you that a particular transaction is faulty or not faulty, just a single word, that itself, would that be enough? It would not be enough, because it would not tell you what is the exact reason why it has been actually classified as faulty or not faulty. It will, as far as it's giving you descriptive information along with it, that this is the reason why it has really failed, or it's giving you more insight into what has really gone wrong. That is where it will make more sense, and that's where your interpretability will come into picture. So in that case, you'll have high operational efficiency, but you have very low explanation in that case, because usually people don't give you that much information about it. Say for example, even a lot of times, like when you are trying to work with an ATM, you are trying to draw a certain amount, and like many times it will just give you, it can't give you anything. It will not even give you the reasons associated with it. Sometimes it will give you the respective reasons that, okay, it is out of cash, or this particular denomination is not available, or something like that. But many a times it does not give you that. So we do not have that explanation associated in a lot of use cases, which is something which can be built with the help of the combination of generative AI. Now, personalized credit scoring. So for every loan that you are trying to ask for from the bank, there is a credit scoring associated with it. So when you are trying to do that, it will just give you that credit number, okay, the score associated with it. Now, if you had a description along with it, which would give you more descriptive information about what you can do with the help of that score and what you can really try to get a loan of, like in terms of the maximum amount that you can get and the minimum amount that you can get, it gives you a much more better clarity of the entire situation and what you can really do in terms of the amount that you have and in terms of the loans that you'd want to take. Next, cryptic reason codes. So many a times, we have all seen, right? Like we get failures across platforms, across products. There are numbers that come up, but you are not given complete information about what is really happening around that. Now, with the help of LLM tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, or even you can say Claude, any of these tools, you can get much more descriptive understanding and information around it so that you can get much more better efficiency, better process continuous improvement and things around that. Then trading signals. So autonomous trading is something which we have implemented as processes in our systems at the backend for various financial companies. You will see that there would be a buy or a sell call associated with it or a hold call associated, 3 calls associated with it. Now, if the system is able to tell you that, okay, why am I suggesting a buy call? Why am I suggesting a sell call? And it's giving you descriptive information around it with personalization and customization, it will help you to understand and make your decisions better. Now, why are we talking about all of this and why are we talking about descriptiveness? Because many a times what happens is our systems overrun and give you hallucination problems. So say, I'll give you a practical example that we really recently faced and how we tackled that and how we tried to build a trustworthiness aspect over there. So in the financial world, we are like rampaged with a lot of documents and they are large number of documents in general. Now, I have a system which is able to classify whether this document that has been ingested into the system is of what kind. So basically, there is a type of report associated with each and every document. Now, while I'm trying to build a model which will able to classify this, that okay, this particular document is an annual report. This particular document is a semi-annual report. This particular document is going to give me some MOM about the AGM, the annual general meeting that happened, and so on. There are a number of such documents which are there. Now, if I have this model which has been built, which is going to tell me which classification category is it going to belong to, and the model is going to throw me an output. That is how deep learning models work or how generative AI models work. Now, am I really sure that, okay, the report category that has really come out is absolutely correct? It's not the case, because usually you'll see that the performance of the models are not 100% accurate, because it's humanly not possible for the AI to match exactly what the human does. So we might see errors, and that is not something that we can tolerate at our financial end, because if the document has been classified into something else and it is sent downstream to all our customers in the wrong format, it will be a problem. So to ensure that our systems are doing well, we have an additional component over here which you can see, which is called as HITL. And this is something which a lot of us are already implementing, and the ones who are not are also trying to integrate that to build a lot of trust in our ecosystem. That is the processes that we are trying to take to production. HITL is nothing but human in the loop. So the process goes in the following order. That is, the document is ingested into the system, and then through our agentic AI processes, through our RAG pipelines, you will see that there is document embedding as well as chunking done, and post which there is model classification. So what does model classification actually entail at the back end? Nothing but a document classification model, which will give you an output associated by taking in the features that, okay, these are the documents that I have, and this is the associated classification label associated with it. Now, I'm not sure whether the classification is correct or not. So if I want to ensure that I'm not making mistakes and ensure that we do not send incorrect information to our customers, we have this layer, which is called as human in the loop, where the analyst will do a verification, which will take a very small fraction of time in comparison to what the analyst was doing earlier. That is, opening each and every document, going through the entire details and making sure that it's classifying it to the correct category. So while you have this HITL layer, it helps you to build that trustworthiness on your system that you have built and really put it into production and utilize it. Next, of course, once you have passed through this HITL layer, you can directly go to the downstream propagation of your results in whichever pipeline and order that you'd want to. So this is one use case where you can see how to really build a certain aspect of trust, which is lacking in usual regular systems. Because many times what happens is, That these, if you have LLMs running in the classification aspect, they might just give you any kind of a random output, which may not be something that the systems can really understand. Like instead of, like if you have a document category, it may be placed within 10 to 20 characters in general. But many a times the hallucination aspect runs in such a situation that it might give you gibberish and Latin characters, Unicode characters up to 500, 600 characters in general. We've seen this in reality where LLMs like Gemini as well as ChatGPT are giving us these kind of results. So that's why to avoid those kind of scenarios, you should have a trustworthiness layer built in, which is nothing but, in a lot of technical terms, you can say guardrails built into your prompts, guardrails built into your pipeline, so that you are trying to restrict the kind of output that it is generating. Now we'll talk at the end about what kind of framework should be built to ensure that we are building trustworthiness into our systems. So interpretability by design. So whenever you're trying to build a model, your teams are trying to build models and you are the one who is at the decision making end, who is trying to approve this and seeing the value of that particular process which has been automated. You need to ensure that they are interpretable. And when we say interpretable, we saw those factors which can be an indicator to say that, okay, these are interpretable models. That is one. Second, the right tool for the job. So you just map your technique. That is, you use either your Shapley techniques, your Lime techniques, which are traditional ways of doing that, or you use generative AI techniques to get your data science process in a much more better way. Next, what you have is a human in the loop. So we already spoke about that example, how we can put a layer, a human in the middle to ensure that our outputs and processes are giving the outputs that we are requiring, and our accuracy or performance is also not compromised in any format. Then continuous monitoring. So you can keep monitoring your data, keep monitoring how your outputs are really coming out to be, so that everything is in order as you would expect it to be. Now, this is one set of tick marks that you can ensure that you do while you are trying to build responsible AI ecosystem. I think all of us who is trying to productionize AI processes are trying to build this kind of an ecosystem where we have a lot of data governance, AI governance, security, trust, and responsible. These are four terms which are bothering us because we do not really want to let AI take over any of our systems and make a lot of unwanted predictions which we are not really wanting to deal with. So these are certain things. One is ethical guidelines. So whenever you're using your AI models, whether it be open sourced or closed sourced, you are making sure that it has some accountability and transparency principles embedded within it, so that it's giving you the right kind of outputs that you're looking at. Second, the kind of governance structure that you want to build. So clear ownership and accountability of your entire systems, how they are built, and what kind of outputs it's going to give you is also something which is very important to look at. Then life cycle control. So entire process, end-to-end life cycle controls is very, very important. Right from your design phase to your deployment and to how to really take it to real-time systems. Then documentation, of course, is very, very important. Risk management. So if you feel that there is any kind of risk associated with your models or any process in your pipelines, double check and make sure that you are trying to navigate that right at the beginning and asking the questions at the right time and not at the end while you're trying to productionize it. Then humans oversight, of course, is something that we saw. Monitoring and feedback. So continuous monitoring of your own pipelines and feedback from those pipelines is something which can be looked at. This is one set of frameworks which has been built and people are using in their own organizations for trusting AI. You can have a look at some of these if you are trying to integrate this in your own ecosystem right now. If that is something which can be catered to or you can use them. Else you can usually build your own because every organization has their own limitations and own vision and mission to really cater to. So NIST AI risk management framework is providing those structured guidelines which are very, very important for AI risk management. So from risk perspective, we spoke about a lot of issues that could come up. There are endless such things which can come up. So for those things, you can refer to this framework. Then there is a framework which is called a SAFE framework, which is security, accountability, fairness, as well as explainability. So it comprises of all these four factors because security itself is a major concern today because we know that how these tools are utilizing our data in ways which we did not predict it to or which we do not really want it. So you can use this framework. Then all of our big fours have their own frameworks, KPMG, Deloitte, EY. They have their own frameworks which they have built to safeguard their data and also work with their processes. Next, we have the CFA Institute, Explainable AI Framework, Generative AI Governance Framework, and SFIX Framework. You can explore these if you're looking out for a trustworthy AI framework, which you'd want to implement in your own setup. So yeah, this is what I had to cover. The main goal or motive of talking about this is to ensure that the systems that we are trying to build at the back end are trustworthy. They are something that we can rely on even when we do not have humans all around us all the time, so that there is interpretability maintained, which is a very important factor today. Secondly, you have immediate integration. That is, your integration processes are way more uh, continuously structured, and they are in such a way that they do not need a lot of monitoring and feedback. All of that is automated because that is the purpose of AI at the back end. And generative AI should not be completely dependent on, but should be considered as an ally and always work along with it. So that's the basic purpose that we have at the back end. Okay, so that pretty much brings me to the end of this talk.